All right, we are back. We got my man Matrix in the middle here, doing it again, man. Like always, we get on this and we try to cover up some of our regions, kind of cover them over, see what's going on with them. This is going to be an interesting one. 6A Central.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna have some interesting
Sure.
stuff here. Like always, we jump in and just so we know, he's already gone. Phew. Just like always, what we do is we address max preps where teams end last season. We go over those. We kind of see whether or not, oh dear Lord, whether or not teams are going to kind of come out the same way they did last year, or whatever the case might be. So we're gonna let, as always, my man Daniel jump in here. And by the way, we got Mr. Rodney Cox in the middle from Game Time RC. And obviously Daniel over here on the far side from Varsity Breakdown.
Yes, sir.
And we're jumping into this one, the 6A Central. Daniel, break it on down for me.
All right, here in the 6A Central, we're going to start off with Brophy Prep, who finished 8-2 last year, 4-0 in the region, your region champions. Corona del Sol last season went 3-7, 1-3 in their region. Desert Vista finished 2-8, 0-4 in the region. Mountain Pointe 6-4, went 2-2 in the region. And last but not least, Salpointe Catholic, who went 8-2 last year and 3-1 in the region. And as you can see, 4 out of the 5 teams made it to the playoffs, except for Desert Vista. But can things shape out that way this year? We're going to see, and we're going to dive into why it possibly might.
And like I had mentioned, we always look at where Max Preps had them ending last year. Let's start with Brophy. They ended the season ranked at number 13. Corona del Sol ended the season at 41. Desert Vista ranked at 62. Mountain Pointe at 32. And Salpointe at 12, which is actually an interesting thing, especially since we both mentioned, right, or we can mention right now that Brophy Prep won that region. So it's interesting that Max Preps actually has Salpointe ranked a little higher than Brophy. Don't necessarily know why that is, but that's a Max Prep thing. So we always don't have to agree, but like we said, it's a Max Prep thing. Right. So we're going to jump in here and what are you doing, man?
Listen, I'm in a good mood. Listen, I saw you wearing your Oregon, so I was like, yo, let me get on my green, and because we're gonna do this whole NCAA, me and Daniel, we gonna get on the sticks. So and I want to be like, y'all, you guys got the headset, so I want to bring on mine.
There we go.
Yeah.
Getting with the program now.
So who wants to start out this region?
You know what? Let me start it off real quick. So starting off the region with Brophy Prep, obviously, they were the division champions last year. Come in, Max Preps have them ranked 13th. They're at Williamsfield, okay, away game, who is ranked 19th. Then they have to play against a good Regis Jesuit out of Colorado, which again, that's going to be a good game. Then their next game, their third game is going to be at Centennial, who's ranked 2nd. Then they have at Perry, who's ranked 18th. And then they have 2 home games before the bye. First one is going to be Notre Dame Prep, who's ranked 30th, and then Basha, who's ranked number 3. Bye game, which is going to be well needed to rest up, because they have an away game at Desert Vista, who's ranked 62. Then their next 2 games is home games, which is Corona del Sol, ranked 41. Mountain Pointe ranked 32, and then they're going to end their regular season at Salpointe in Tucson, who's ranked 12th. Max Preps have them going somewhere around 6-3, 7-3, 6-4, somewhere around there. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. We kind of have them going that 8-2, right? With the losses at Centennial, which, let's be honest, ranked 2nd in Arizona, and then obviously losing against the 3rd-ranked team, which is Basha. So, Daniel, hit me up a little bit. Talk to me about maybe some athletes that we should be looking out for, or why you think 8-2, and go from there.
Well, I think last year they were one of my biggest surprises when Chris and I were talking about this region, as possibly that team that could win this region, and they ended up doing that. And I think when you have players like Harrison Chambers and Carlos Estrada coming back in the backfield, then you have Christian Camarada and Dylan Sharper coming back in your receiving core. Those are your top two at each position that are coming back. The only one that's kind of departing from the offense is their quarterback, Charlie McGinnis. So I think when you have the core of that offense coming back and to be able to do what they did, I believe they lost in the semifinals, if I'm not mistaken, in the 6A tournament. So to me, it's another team that's coming back loaded and ready to possibly chase another 6A title, or even we'll see if depending on how the Castile and Basha games go, could possibly maybe even sneak into the Open 8. But we'll see. What about you, Chris? Anything different that you see on Brophy's end?
Yeah, a lot of these games, I'm really kind of clueless when it comes to these out of state teams. So I ain't gonna lie, I tend to pick them just to win, just because let's go AZ. Like, to be real with you guys. I think one of the things that we've talked about is how it's, I don't want to say predictable, but how some of these larger programs, they just reload. So you can kind of sit there and kind of guesstimate how these games will go. I mean, I think it's going to be just like last year. There could be a tough game coming at the end of the season against Salpointe. Well, you know, definitely that could be a game to definitely circle. There's other couple games in here that I think you can circle as well, as could be interesting. For example, Williamsville could be an interesting game. So there's several games on here you might want to kind of watch and kind of circle. But for the most part, I think it's easy to kind of sit there and go, okay, look, you know, they got three. And actually, it looks like, who was the third team that they had pretty much to lose here? Because when I'm looking here, Max Prep's got a 6-3 question mark, because obviously question marks the team out. So I mean, this could literally be a 6-4 if the Regis is actually pretty decent, like you're saying, Rodney. But who are the teams? So they have them potentially losing against Williamsfield. That's one of the teams. Perry could be an interesting game. Let's see who else. Who do they have like losing? Centennial, Basha, Salpointe, and yeah.
Interesting. Who else?
So it's an interesting schedule, man. It really is. But yeah, I mean,
no, I get you. I mean, Regis, the team, their second game. I mean, last year they went 6-5. They went 4-1 in their league, or in their region.
Right.
So again, I mean, it's not going to be a pushover game. So I think, I mean, again, that could, you just don't know, you know what I mean? Especially when you get in a team that you're not accustomed to, you know. And then again, check this out. So, and I just found this out, that Larry Fitzgerald's son plays for Brophy Prep. Devin Fitzgerald, he plays wide receiver. So now you add him, and he has long arms. He can definitely run. I mean, he has the talent like his father. So now you just put him in to add into, what is it, Christian and Dalen. I mean, Brophy looks strong. You know what I mean? So I'm excited to see what they do. You know what I mean? 8-2. And let's see what happens from there.
I also think that it's interesting that they picked a Colorado school. Like, normally Tucson, or actually Arizona, I gotta say Arizona, tends to head towards California.
Right.
And I think the only difference is you'll see on Mountain Pointe's schedule. So last year they played Cathedral Catholic out of California for Brophy, but this year Mountain Pointe's playing them. So maybe it was a different. Maybe the game was just one-sided, where it was only 31-21. So, but maybe Cathedral Catholic went with a different team, and so Brophy had to pick up another opponent there. But I think kind of like what you were saying, Chris, this is all probably going to come down for me to the last game against Salpointe. Last year it was a 14-12 game, so it could have went either way. So I'm expecting some fireworks again this year to kind of wrap up the season for them. And like I said, I think those two games, maybe like you said, the Perry game. But other than that, I mean, this is just a very powerful team here.
It's a great schedule too.
Yeah.
Next coming up is actually one of the schools that you're familiar with because the head coach kind of coming out of Casa Grande. So I'm going to let you go ahead and attack this one, Daniel, if you'd like.
All right. So Corona del Sol comes in ranked 41. They're going to open up against Coach Barrow's former team. They're going to be at Casa Grande this year, who's ranked 63rd. Then they're going to be home against Apple Valley, who's out of California, with another 2 home games against Pinnacle, who's 14, Chandler, who's 4th. Then they're at Saguaro, who's 6th. And following their bye, they're at home 2 games in a row against Salpointe Catholic, who's 12th, Mountain Point, who's 32, at Brophy Prep, who's 13, home against Desert Vista, who's 62, and then finally wrap up at Castile, who is 22. And based on off of Max Preps, they have them going 2-7 in the state, and then of course the toss up with Apple Valley could go either way. So overall, that's what Max Preps has them at, but we tend to have them, 1 game better at 3-7, and it was pretty much unanimous as far as the wins and losses go. We have them winning at Casa Grande against Apple Valley, and then at home against Desert Vista. Anything you see different there?
I mean, I think I'm going to jump in here and I'll say it's just like I was mentioning. I think we're just going like, hey, look, it's an out-of-state team. Let's go ahead and give them the win kind of thing. Because in all reality, I mean, could Apple Valley go ahead and beat, Corona del Sol? Absolutely. We just, once again, it would be a team that we'd have to go back and kind of maybe see what we can find out or dig up on them. But this goes to show how strong some of these regions are and also their schedules. I mean, once again, it's like, are you beating, like, Corona del Sol comes in at 41, struggled last year. You got Pinnacle on here. You got Chandler. You got Scottsdale Saguaro. You got, it's almost like you can't even get a breath of fresh air until you play your region. I mean, so I think this is why it's so hard for them to get out of that 2-7 rut.
And you know what? I agree with you. And again, and I agree. I mean, I agree with you as far as, it's tough. Just looking at their roster from last year. I mean, they literally lost everybody. Their quarterback was their number 1 rusher. Then they have their second and third rushers gone, and then the only person or the 2 people that's coming back is their top receiver, who is Mr. Vines Bright, and then their third leading tackler. So again, it's going to be a battle. It's definitely going to be a battle, especially in that strong conference. It's going to be tough. So again, that's why we have them kind of around that 3-7, 2-8 kind of deal. So obviously we shall see. Footballs will be here in about a month.
Right there with Max Preps. I mean, it's almost like business as usual kind of thing.
And Apple Valley went 6-5 last year, so just to get they were another team that made the playoffs. So it's going to be a good game, and even if you want to start with that first game, I know Rodney always likes to talk about those opening games. Anything can happen, kind of thing. So Casa Grande, they only beat them 14-0 last year. So knowing what we know about Casa Grande, can Corona del Sol, finally get a little momentum here and maybe have a couple upsets. I mean, if you were looking at this schedule, is there anybody else that you think that they could beat possibly this year, depending on how they come in, if they come in reloaded?
Wow.
You know what? I'm gonna throw this, and somebody gonna be mad at me.
Go ahead.
Last game at Castile.
Okay.
Nah, bro.
I don't. Now here we go. No, let me tell you why.
Okay.
Castile's a very good team. Let's be honest. And again, I know Coach Newcomb over there and things like that. But again, depending on how well Castile does, Castile could overlook Corona del Sol, because let's be honest, Castile's always in the playoffs. They can say, you know what? We can kind of, let our foot off the gas. And again, that's when a team like a Corona del Sol can come in and bite your ass and get an upset, things like that. So I potentially could see, and again, count me on, what is this, July 24th. You know what? Corona del Sol upsets Castile. I said it.
I think honestly, on my angle, if I had to pick a game that could be interesting, maybe Mountain Point. Maybe, and honestly, that's a maybe. Unfortunately, I just sit here and see, that you might even be shocked on how Desert Vista might do. So I mean, you really got to kind of do on that thing. I mean, that's what it is, man. I'm sticking with my 3-7.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm with that right there with you guys. I would say, if anything, probably Mount Point, but they're coming back.
Yeah,
Pretty sad. We'll talk about them, but is Saguaro, are they going to be the same team? That's another question that you'll
Right.
kind of see us bring up with a lot of these teams playing a team like Saguaro. So it's definitely going to be interesting for Corona del Sol, but I can definitely see them going just 3-7. And you're going to see a lot of these teams with similar records as they had last year, just based off of who they're playing.
yep.
Mhm.
Max
Yeah.
Preps. Desert Vista. Who did the
Man,
last one,
listen,
guys? Who did the last?
Desert Vista. Let's jump into it. So Desert Vista is ranked 62. Their first two games are away games at Cienega, so they got to travel to Southern Arizona, which Cienega is ranked 88. Then they have an away game on Thursday, Williamsfield, who's ranked 19th. Then their next two games are going to be home games against Valley Vista, who's ranked 73, and then Hamilton, good old Huskies, who's ranked 7th. Then the next game is going to be at Chaparral, who's ranked 33, and then it's going to be a home game against Salpointe, who's ranked 12th. They got a bye week, and then their next four games is going to be two at home, with Brophy Prep being 13. Ironwood is ranked 140, and then they're going to end the season, or in the regular season, at Corona del Sol, who's ranked 41, and then at Mountain Point on a Thursday at 32. Max Preps has them going 3-7. Me and Daniel have them going 3-7. Chris is the Lone Ranger, having them going 2-8. So, Chris,
Yeah,
2-8.
Off, Chris.
Damn.
Hey, look, man, I'm gonna say it like this: you better start your season strong and come out here and get Cienega, because if they kind of turn a leaf or anything like that, it's gonna be a long season. So I'm telling you right now. I mean, obviously Williamsfield is always a tough competitor. So where my differences is here against you guys is I'm taking Valley Vista over Desert Vista. I think it's a battle of the Vista pretty much, right? But I like Valley Vista's hymns to have a lot of kids that are coming back when I looked them up. Not that I'm really familiar once again with any of these programs except for Salpointe, but I will say it is Valley Vista's got some kids coming back. And I mean, it was a close game last year, and it looked just like, Valley Vista was a little bit more like, hey, this is who we're back, kind of thing. Whereas it looked like Desert Vista was losing a couple of kids. So me personally, I was like, shoot, go ahead, give me that 2-8. Like I said, it's going to be a long season because it's going to be a struggle from Cienega to Ironwood Ridge, which is the other team that I'm going to give them a W for. But it looks like, once again, I'm going to pick them. A little preview. I'm going to pick them to be my bottom seed in this region.
No, and I absolutely agree with you. And if you kind of look at what they have coming back, I mean, they're losing their quarterback. They have their number 1 and number 2 running backs coming back. I believe it's Tyler Drunaski and Lucas Shermayer. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But if you look at both of those running backs coming back, they only combined for about 570 yards, maybe a plus or minus. So not very effective in the offensive standpoint when you look at it. But if you look at their record from last year, they didn't put up a lot of points. I think they put over 25 points once last year, and that was against Ironwood. So everything else is, 3 to 4 touchdowns. And unfortunately, in the 6A division, that's just not going to get it done with how many high-powered offenses we have in this division alone. They're also going to be bringing back Maxwell Sprott, who's their number 2 receiver. So if you kind of look at it, they're not a team that is, going to be the same team they're bringing in from last year. So I think the struggles are still definitely going to be there.
And you know what? I'm gonna piggyback off you, Daniel. I mean, just looking at like who they have to play, one everybody that they lost from last year. And again, you just brought up as far as them only passing, 25 points one game. I think it was lower than that. I think it was like 21 points, maybe even that, So you're right. Being in that and their opponent, you got to score points. I mean, that's just what it is. And I mean, you got to go from Williamsfield, Hamilton, Chaparral, Salpointe. I mean,
it's brutal. And mind you guys, once again, this is the only team in this region that didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
So, and when you're talking 6A, I hate to sound like this, is that not making the playoffs in 6A, you probably need to move down to 5A.
Yeah.
I mean,
how
more
many
than 3/4 of the freaking the division goes to a playoff game.
And how many teams are in 6A?
Like 31, 30, something like that.
33, 32.
Yeah, it's low. I think it was like mid-low 30s, I think.
Right.
I mean, it's not a lot. So when you talk about the Open 8, which is a majority of pretty much all 6A, there goes 8 teams. You miss 16 out of the next because of the the state playoff. I mean, the 6A playoffs. You're literally up in a what? I'm top of my head. I'm just so horrible with math. What you like 24, 22, something like that?
That's wild.
16-8, right? What is that? 24?
Oh, that's 24.
24.
Yeah.
Yep.
So 24 out of 31 teams, and you didn't make the playoffs, and you're in a solid program like region. Hey man, I'm going 2-8. Sorry guys.
Yeah.
I hate to just be that way. But next team we go over to Mountain Point. That's going to be Daniel.
Yeah, I got it. We're moving. So we got Mountain Point, who's currently ranked 32. They're going to open up their first game at home on Thursday against Valley Vista, who's 73. Then they're going to be traveling out to California as they'll be facing Cathedral Catholic. Another 2 away games as they're at Castile, who's 22, at Central, who's 76, home against Cesar Chavez, who's 97, on the road against ALA Quinn Creek, who's ranked 8th. Then after their bye, they're at Corona del Sol, who's 41, at home against Salpointe, who's 12, at Brophy Prep, who is 13, and then finish up on a Thursday night game at home against Desert Vista, who is 62. Max Preps has them going 5-4 in the state of Arizona, with, of course, that toss-up against Cathedral Catholic, where they don't really decide that game. But 5-5, 6-4. We all have them going 6-4 this year, picking up wins against Valley Vista, Cathedral Catholic, Central, Cesar Chavez, Corona del Sol, and Desert Vista. When you look at this team, they kind of were the middle of the pack, of the bunch here. Could they possibly somehow shock some teams here and make a little bit of a jump for themselves this year?
That is a good question. I mean, just looking at their roster from last year, right? I know they had Christian Clark, which that was their guy, right? Who went to University of Texas, right? Like he was legit good. Good thing is that they do have their quarterback coming back, Robert Noor. But again, they lose their number one running back. Oh, say it again. Oh,
Maricopa guy. He was out at Maricopa before he transferred.
Oh, he transferred. Look at that. Yeah. You know what? You should have got on your phone. Wait. So you're transferred? Okay. So they lose their number 1 rusher. They lose their number 3 rusher, but they still have their number 2 rusher, Mr. Rodriguez. They do have their number 1 and number 2 wide receiver coming back. Obviously, their 3rd wide receiver who is gone is Christian Clark, who is their running back. Their top tackler is gone in Demetrius Johnson, but they do have Jalen Coulter and Caleb Jones. So I mean, they still have like their main nucleus that's still there. If I had to pick them, let's just see. So we have them going 6-4. The game that I could see them potentially maybe upsetting someone. You know what? I'm gonna pick Castile again. I don't know. Something about Castile. I don't know. So I can see them going maybe like a 7-3 if they can beat Castile. I mean, that's what, a 5-game winning streak. You know what I mean? Before the bye. So, I could potentially see that happening.
Me on the other side, guys, I hate to sound like this. We're giving them 6-4, and we're actually doing like we're literally playing into the hands of Max Preps here. Max Preps got them at 5-4. We're giving them the win once again of playing a California school, you know. So where do they pick up the next win? I'll tell you where they think maybe they could get a new win. Do me a favor, Daniel. Do you have their schedule at all from last year? Can you tell me what the score was against Salpointe?
26-35.
Yep.
Here's my thing.
Okay.
Could Salpointe's lost a lot of guys on like two solid D guys, defensive line guys, doing the ends. We know that their defensive line was solid last year. Now I do know that they got some solid players over there that we'll talk about probably here in a minute. But you look at so the running game, they had a couple kids last year that was solid, right? Over at Salpointe that was decent. Now you have our guy Richard Rivera coming in, right? He's going to be, we got to see how he's tested and how he does. I mean, obviously he's a solid player, but who's the additional dude? Like, where's the second running back that could come in for Salpointe? We're still kind of figuring out a relatively new young guy over at Salpointe playing quarterback. So there's a lot of question marks for me sometimes at Salpointe, especially on certain close games. I mean, I'm going to lean towards Salpointe anyway, just because it's one of my squads. I'm going to have to do that. But could that be something for Mountain Point? Watch it,
Okay. I mean, listen, I can see that, and I know why you're going at that, because let's be honest, we always talk about this is that quarterback position, right? Just like when we talked about, was that yesterday or a couple of days ago, about Walden Grove, right? When you lose a good quarterback, it's like, I hope you've been training the guy behind, because if you haven't, it's going to be a long season. So,
I will say this, is that Salpointe didn't have an explosive quarterback last year.
Right.
It wasn't like he's like, hey, look, he was like a Trenton Bourget or something like that,
right.
Or a Trayson for that matter. He was a decent player.
Yep.
But he's about almost more like an average player. So where is this new kid coming in? We'll see. Obviously, we're going to talk about that school right now. And actually, Rodney, we're going to let you run it.
Here we go. Salpointe comes in ranked 12th. Their first game, again, I'm going to be at this game. I like this game a lot. At Marana, who's ranked 48th. Then they have to play against a Cali team, Bishop Alamany, again, from California. That's going to be their home game. Then they have another home game, Shadow Ridge, who's ranked 78th. And then they have an away game, which is on a Thursday, at Centennial, who's ranked 2nd. Bye week, which again, I think they're going to need that, because their next two games are going to be away at Desert Vista, who's ranked 62, and then at Corona del Sol, who's ranked 41. Then they have another tough game against Liberty, who's number 1 in the state of Arizona. And then they have a away game at Mountain Point, who's ranked 32. And then their last two games for the regular season is against Saguaro, who's ranked 6th, and then Brophy Prep, who's ranked 13th. At least with the games here in Arizona, Max Preps has them going 6-3. At least for Chris has them going 7-3. Me and Daniel, we have them going 6-4. They got a tough schedule. I mean, listen, you got the number 1 team, the number 2 team. I mean, literally, they got the number 6 team in Saguaro, which, that can give or take. But Centennial, Liberty, Marana. So what do you think, Chris? Daniel, talk to me.
I mean, I'll sit here and say this. Once again, Max Prep's got them at 6-3. Let's think about where their wins are coming from. Actually, more easier to say where their losses are coming from. They're saying Centennial. They're saying, for instance, Liberty. They're saying Scottsdale Saguaro. I personally think the only reason why they're not saying Brophy is because they got them ranked 1 above. I'm still going to kind of lean that maybe Brophy gets them on the last moment there. Just like last year, they're loaded. They're coming back. So I think it's pretty much a reset on it. Could they get that game? Absolutely. Do I feel my upset against you guys is Scottsdale Saguaro? I really don't know what's going on with Scottsdale Saguaro. I love me some Darius Kelly. I'll be the first person to call him and say, man, I wish you the best. But I mean, you kind of get this whole thing like, where is everything going with Scottsdale Saguaro? Plus, Salpointe beat them last year.
It's a new year. I'm talking to them right now, the
Shut up.
SaberCats.
You are not.
I'm talking to the whole team.
Stop it.
They said last year was a fluke.
It could have been a fluke, but
yeah, they said this is a new year. This is the Kelly era.
Look at the guy with the green freaking headphones on.
You see him? Hey, you
look,
see
I'm
him?
saying right now, like, give
What are you
me.
saying?
I got you guys up on this one, the 7-3. Obviously, once again, giving the win for Bishop Alamani.
Okay.
But like, I do think they can do an upset on Scottsdale Saguaro. And once again, I think we go and we reflect back, and Daniel, maybe you can help us out with some of the name dropping here. But once again, where is my defense? That's one of my question marks for Salpointe.
Right.
Also, will the running game be able to be as strong as it was with multiple players? I know that like Richard's going to be fine doing the same, Rivera, but he's going to have some help, whether it's from the quarterback, which is normally the case. We all know this, that a quarterback tends to be either the second, third, or even the first running back or rushing complement to the team. So I'm really kind of interested to see how that goes and how much help they give him.
Yeah, because if you look at this team, they're, as you guys have been speaking of, losing the quarterback, the top 3 running backs. They do, on a positive end, have Morgan Query, I believe is how you pronounce the last name.
Core.
You got Nathan Spivey returning as well. And then you have the top 3 tacklers. Even though you're losing, 2 great defensive ends, you still have your 3. Yes, Thomas Regina Dinos Drazos. And of course, Nathan Spivey, he plays both sides of the ball. So a lot of those, could that possibly help this offense here when you have a little bit of your core of your defense coming back, especially the guys that kind of shined last year? That's where I think in order for Salpointe to do what they did last year, another team that made it to the semifinals in the 6A state tournament, that I think they're going to have to rely a lot on defense and allow their offense to develop game by game. Because it's going to take some chemistry, for a new quarterback to come in, get familiar with his wide receivers, make that connection there, to have a new, not only one, but possibly 2 or 3 new running backs playing the field this year that are going to need to contribute. How is that? How is the offensive line going to be looking this year? So a lot of questions more on the offensive side for Salpointe, but I think if everything works out for them, it's going to be a team that will come back tough. But there's just going to be some games in there that, if I'm looking at them, I mean, Corona del Sol only lost to them by 9 points. Desert Vista only lost to them by 10 points. You have Mountain Point, as we talked about, lost to them 35-26. There's some games in there, if their offense is not in sync, they could possibly be upsetted this year. And that's, what do we have them 6-4? Rodney, me and you, that could possibly maybe even turn into a 5-5. Who knows where those games are going to really lie. But I think if anything, the only other game I probably would be worried about them would be that Mountain Point game, as you were talking earlier, Chris.
I mean, hey, underestimate my Salpointe guys, and guess what? They're going to upset y'all. So, go ahead, be low, Go ahead.
Hey, I'm just saying, yeah, you know what? But I do like what they have. I mean, they made it to the number 2 seed, and they went 8-2 last year, and it's very possible that they can upset a Saguaro. But when you're playing the number 1 and number 2 teams, that's going to really show kind of what kind of team you have, with that Liberty game last year, 49-0, just to show just how strong those open 8 teams really are in this 6A.
It's a hard schedule. Yeah. I'll keep going hard schedules, man.
Yeah.
Solid all the way through. Rodney, I know you got to kind of bounce out because you got an appointment going on. So do you have a couple minutes to go ahead and talk more, or what's your deal?
Yeah. So do we want to go over the region standings?
Yep.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't?
Perfect. So I'll start it off, which is funny. We all literally have it all the same. So we have 4-0 Brophy Prep coming in at number 1. We have Salpointe coming in at number 2, being 3-1. We have Mountain Point coming in at number 3, 2-2. We have Corona del Sol coming in at 1-3, which is going to be 4th in that region. And then Desert Vista is coming in last place. Again, strong, just strong region. I mean, it's just, whew, listen, I'm excited for football. Like top to bottom, like I just want to see like what Brophy Prep does. I kind of want to see what Corona del Sol does, with that coach over there. And again, even with their first game being against his old team, you know what I mean? I think that's going to be a real good one. Salpointe, just like what you guys said, as far as, seeing what that offense is going to do. I think their defense is going to carry them. That's going to put them in the right position to score. It's just that the offense has to capitalize. So no, listen, I'm excited. Desert Vista, prove us wrong, because again, that's just what it is, So listen, I'm excited. Football's here. NCAA is here.
Yes, sir.
Daniel, you're going down. Daniel.
And we're gonna get it set up. Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
I'm gonna tell you guys right now. One of the things that you guys, those people chiming in and kind of checking out our podcast or whatever you want to call this right now. These two are going to battle off, and we're going to actually stream it.
Yeah.
So that is the goal here, to kind of have these guys kind of face off, and then from there, actually, what we're hoping to do is put these guys in their own little realms where they can battle the kids from their areas. Kind of see what goes on there. So, we'll see what's going on and put you guys to the test. I think.
And remember, it's going to be an interview at the same time, so we're going to be distracting you with questions.
Absolutely.
While we're hitting the
these kids. Listen, these kids can't do 2 or 3 things at the same time.
What are you talking?
Multitasking.
That is not in their vocabulary right now.
Rodney falls asleep looking down, guys.
Whoa.
So before we go, I got one question. Just back to this 6A Central here.
Okay.
We had 2 teams in the semifinals last year.
Okay.
Could it possibly happen again? I mean, Brophy Prep, Salpointe Catholic both went. Eventually, Salpointe lost to Saguaro on the rematch. Red Mountain knocking off Brophy Prep by 1 point.
In overtime.
Yes, in overtime.
Yeah.
Oh, both teams coming back strong.
Could it happen? I'm going to say absolutely. The reason why I'm going to say absolutely is because typically the Open 8 wipes out a whole bunch of the teams that these guys tend to struggle against. So when you remove those programs, they tend to be kind of like in that competitive kind of, against their peers, which I really truly feel that they kind of stand out with those teams, because you're just barely outside of, you're about midway in the 16 bracket for 6A. You're in that mid area. So catch somebody sleeping or something like that who's been beat up, maybe if they were in a stronger region, or if they were in a weaker region, they're just not ready. So, I mean, yeah, I think you can definitely get those 2 more teams back in that Final Four or whatever the case might be.
All right. Well, yeah,
I agree with you.
I'm good. Yeah, for sure. I definitely do too. And before we head out too, not only do we got football, playing each other and stuff like that, we're also going to introduce during the season, I'm going to call it the Tuesday top 10s, where the kids are going to submit their huddles and we can go over the film and create our own top 10 list. So if you want your film out there, you got your, your big plays that you made on Friday or Thursday, send them in, because we're trying to show out as many plays as we can this year.
Well, and I think you bring up a great point. We're trying to showcase these kids. We're trying to put it out there. We're trying to have fun with you guys, obviously with the video game kind of concept coming up here as well. So, we're trying to get involved. So do me a favor. This is always the best time to segue into this. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe on the page. It's our content we're putting out there, and we really enjoy you guys kind of coming back and pushing up our numbers. Share it with your guys' friends. Let's see how many hits we can get on this video. We always trying to move it, push it up. So yeah.
Push. Perfect. We out.
Other than that, we're all out. Be good.